Today on Off Topic with Jason and Amanda, we actually talk for once because we can discuss contemporary issues. Current events, that's the word I was looking for. Oh man, I spend the entire episode trying to figure out words. And we talk about the economy. And welcome to Off Topic with Jason and Amanda. It's a pleasure to have you back again, whether you're watching this on Patriot.tv or whether you're watching it on X or whether you're watching it in the bathroom. Just don't tell anyone because that's a little bit weird, but we all do it. No, it's like that
Do
kid's book.
we?
No, every man scrolls his phone while he's in the bathroom.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why it takes so long.
It took just as long before we had phones. It's just now we have an excuse. So I was answering emails. I swear it was work related. I can't help it. I can't be left alone now. I just work, right? You know? Wasn't reading about sports ball. Nope, I've been reading all about. Hey, so we're back, right? So we're back from our hiatus. And it's weird because we've decided to sort of not switch up. Not weird. It's not weird. We're not weird. Okay? I love my couch as the normal amount. We are weird. We admit that. But we're back. And the main difference now, I always like how you look at me with trepidation. What are you going to talk about? We didn't plan anything for this show. It'll be evident. Don't worry. People will know I'm just making this up as I go along. Definitely not.
So excited.
I would never stall for comedic purposes. Aw. Ember had something to say. We'll just pause for that for no reason. We're not filling airtime. No, I'm just kidding. So, but we have decided we could be a little bit more contemporary. Is that the right word to use? Up to date. I know there's a word somewhere. Doing one of those brain farts where I can't remember a word.
I don't know. I have no idea where you're going with any
I don't
of
know.
this, so I can't help.
When I can't think of a word and I start doing a roundabout way of saying the same thing, I call it Congolese. It's a new language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll end up there eventually. Or all of you will just smile and nod at me while I cackle. Anyway, sorry, can't do that. I don't even know how to do it. I rethought about how The Wizard of Oz is really a story about how a guy manipulates a girl. A guy who's pretending to have more power than he does. Manipulates this girl who to go off, like tells her, I'll give you, everything, the only thing you want if you'll go off and kill this lady. And it turns out he's like, ha ha ha, I had it all along. Your shoes, which she stole from another lady she killed. Anyway, that's The Wizard of Oz. Just realizing it's about a sociopathic girl who makes her way through an area just killing random women. No? Is it a metaphor for the Civil War? I'm not really sure.
I don't like that interpretation of it.
It's better than me talking about Grease again. So what? Grease 2, the greatest cinematic achievement in all of history.
Yeah.
The song Reproduction.
Sure.
I had to tell you about it. You thought I was making it up. You thought I told you about the song Reproduction from Grease 2. And I was quite literally quoting the song, and you said to me, "What are you singing?" Like, most of your weird made up songs are weird, but that one's definitely out there. And I'm
that one was bad.
And I said, "No, it's a real song." And you said, "No, it's not." And I said, "Why, yes, it is. It's from the classic Grease 2." And you did not believe me until I played it for you because you said,
I think I saw that
I
once.
hate Grease 2. And I said, really? But you don't know any parts of it.
Because it was so bad that I blocked it out and refused to watch it ever again.
Okay, this is completely off topic, but I grew up without a TV, without cable. Okay. And it was economics, but I also think it was bad. Yeah, good parenting. But I grew up with a box full of tapes. And most of them were musicals. Okay. But kind of like if somebody came, the Medium place, right? So most of the movies that I had were, I never saw Grease Part 1. I saw Grease Part 2 and just assumed Grease Part 1 was just like Grease Part 2. like same actors and all that. I had no idea it was a completely different movie.
That explains so much.
Right, but I mean that's all I saw. Michelle Pfeiffer was gorgeous in that movie, but but that's the only, like that was I was like, oh, Grease 2. Why are people so jazzed up about Grease? The sequel was pretty awful. Like I saw Godfather 3 before I still have yet to see The Godfather. That's how bad Godfather 3 was. But I was just like, whoa. I mean, if you saw Jaws 3, you would not go back and watch Jaws Part 1.
Right.
Right? I'm trying to think there's other sequels like that. You're like, ugh, Ewoks. Ugh, gross monkey children. Right? Hey, I'm not watching Part 1. Well, you shouldn't watch Part 1, but you're not watching Part 4. What?
About half of the Friday 13th.
Yeah. Well, if you watched Part 2
really
of Friday the 13th, you would assume that the murderer in Part 1 was Jason Voorhees. It's not. Friday the 13th is coming up. Just to clarify something.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't,
right, but
spoiler the
Friday
this
the
weekend.
Friday the 13th, the movie? I don't think there's any spoilers left. It was the mom.
Well, but I mean,
right, but I'm saying it's the whole
if it's
thing.
coming up. Is
right.
Is that supposed to happen this week?
No, I don't think. That's the thing is it's the fall. That would be a really bad summer. I'd be sus about any summer camp that was still open right now. Like right now, they're like still taking kids. Like school started weeks ago. This is weird. Right? You're not going to send your kids off. It's not even the Friday. They're like, no, come on to camp. What do they call it? Camp. Oh, man, it was Lake. I'm not going to remember the name of it.
I can't remember either.
I'd like want to look this up now real quick.
Wasn't it Crystal Lake?
Crystal Lake. Yes, come to Camp Crystal Lake. It's beautiful in the fall. Drop your kids off for the week. Right? All of our camp counselors are virgins. Right? That would be the whole thing. I'd be nervous about that.
Yeah.
Discount or no discount. Right. So I'm just budget. But if I watch the other films, you can understand why I'm not so jazzed about watching the rest. Right. Like I didn't even know. There were a lot of things I didn't know as a kid because I was introduced to the worst parts of it. Like the Beatles. We've discussed this, but
yeah.
I was introduced to the Beatles like the Fab Five or Fab Four, mop top singing in harmony thing. It's awful. It's awful. It wasn't even the best music of its day. They were just unique in that they had bad English teeth as opposed to bad American teeth. Let's be fair. Nobody had good teeth back then, right? It wasn't like people running around going, "Oh, I want to keep this forever."
True.
Right. So I'm just saying, the only difference was they were British. We had the Beach Boys. Bunch of stoners. We knew a Beach Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was very proud of the fact that he was a Beach Boy. So our favorite thing to do was never to bring it up, ever.
Yep.
Like, ever. Like, go out of our way. Like, if he started mentioning Tor, we would be like, oh, the floor is dirty. Somebody call a waitress. There's a napkin. He's like, so we've got 16 days. Seriously? A napkin? What is this, a place for ants? Right? Just anything to change the subject. I don't want to hear about it. But we knew a one-hit wonder guy, and I'd talk up his tour all the time.
Yep.
Because he wasn't a Beach Boy. It's just, I don't know. I don't like people with egos. Anyway, that's modern stuff going on right now. I don't even know what we were talking about.
I don't know.
No, but we get to talk about, so we obviously an election. Got a big debate coming up tomorrow night, I believe. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know why we say big debate, because I talk about my morning show that it's not really a big debate, because who's undecided at this point? Right. No, I mean, it's not undecided who you're going to vote for. The question is, can someone on your side do something so egregious that you'll see through the veil that they're pulling over you, right? That you would switch sides if you saw it as that, right? Like if Trump all of a sudden came out and was like, let's bomb Russia. And, everybody would be like, what? Where'd that come from? Or I said Russia. I could mean China. I could mean whatever. If he all of a sudden became pro-war, everybody might be like, hey, what? You going to say something?
I was just going to say that I don't know anybody that nowadays would, no matter what was going on, would change their vote.
No, I know. It's not whether or not you will vote. Excuse me, who you'll vote for. It's whether or not you will vote. That's now the question. So, is it you? Is somebody going to say something that's going to get you off your keister and get you to go vote? Which is sad, but that's a fact. Would you somewhat agree with that?
Yeah.
Statement? Yeah. Right. I mean, you're going to vote because you're a good American, but when you think about your college kids, when you were in college, did you need a reason to vote? I don't know. You're a little bit different. So, but your friends, like, did they need a reason to vote? Or were they all pretty active?
That's not really something I talk to my friends about.
Right. But
it wasn't like.
But we would talk about it, even if Dave and I didn't agree about our politics on election day as adults. We would look at each other and say, did you go vote yet? Or man, the polls, huh? Or how about the sports ball teams? Did you vote?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right. I mean,
I've never asked a friend, like, did you vote?
I would never, right. But I think but you and I would talk about it.
Right.
Election day is coming up. It's time to go vote, right? So let's just say that things were fine and we had some pretty milquetoast candidates running. I mean, we're the wrong people to ask. But I could see people who didn't spend their adult life defending the Constitution. I could see some of them sitting around going, I mean, it's a long commute from work. I'm tired today. Or, oh, there's an election. I mean, if there's nothing going on in the world, are people even going to talk about it that much?
Right.
Right? I mean, it's only when they either have something going on or you're ginning up something going on. Is Ember hungry? This is where doing a show with a live baby. Live show with a baby as well. That's weird. We don't have a little doll that we're faking.
That was a weird statement, wasn't it?
Yeah, thank you. Let's just get it in my head, child's head, that I'm weird.
She knows.
Re-own that word.
She knows.
So people thought that was going to be like a scar.
I know. Nope, we're weird.
Like we're quoting Lord of the Rings regularly. I think it's pretty obvious that we're weird. It's okay with us. Yeah.
None of us were considered cool.
It was definitely not considered cool. I was not voted class president for being cool. Okay. It was, somebody has to do work, extra work. Yeah.
I was not voted anything because I was not known.
Hey, perks of being a wallflower. Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's a reference to your childhood. So anyway, so I asked Dave to pull up. I was trying to figure out what are people. Okay, here, before Dave pulls this up, if you were to sit here right now and say, looking at everything, forget how we're called Nazis. Okay, but just straight up issues. Okay, across the board. If you had to sit here and say, it's like, what's the number one issue in your mind when you think, okay, this is what we got to worry about the next 4 years? Like, top of your list, just in your head.
I mean, anything that affects our children.
Okay, so just a couple things. This is not a test. I'm just asking, like, when you think, like, okay, I got a presidential election, this person's going to be in charge. What are they in charge of? You know, like, what is it that they do that would, like the Office Space, what is it exactly that you do here? Like, if you could tell me what your job is. Like, if you had to ask Pete Buttigieg what his job was and look back at his history and then say, but you just said that was your job. And Kamala Harris, you know, with the whole, borders are, you know, like, what do you do here? The borders are, well, you suck at your job. Right? But the president's in charge of a lot of stuff, or at least they're supposed to be in charge of pointing us in the right direction, ensuring that the Constitution is defended, all of those things, right? So when you think about it, you're like, what's your thing? Is it economy? Is it border? Is it, you know, I don't want a war to happen. I just don't want to worry. I don't want the federal government in my life. Better, more guns, less guns, space lasers. Like what?
I mean, I'm not a one issue person.
Fair enough. But if you say like top one, what's your top issue?
I don't know.
I say it's economy.
I don't really have a top
I think
one.
it's economy because it drives everything. Like whether or not we can feed our kids, whether or not we can, our mortgage rate, whether or not we can afford to replace the tires on the car. Like everything is affected by, the economy in general, as far as how it impacts our life.
Right.
Right. Whether or not we can get the kids clothes, whether or not we can get one day I will buy a new pair of jeans. Right. We all
How
believe
old are
that.
those?
No. No, well, these are still whole, or even holy. So that's a huge thing for us, right? But outside of the scope of that, when you start to think of it, I mean, I care about obviously a little bit different stuff because commodities. I care about energy production. I care about low taxes. I want to see that the money we do spend is well spent. I'm a little bit nervous about Social Security. When I'm not my Social Security, I don't expect it to be there. But I worry about what's going to be the bridge between all of the people who are on Social Security or who are counting on it and those of us who have accepted that it's not going to exist when we're there. I mean, do you really think we're going to have Social Security when we reach age? No, it's not going to be solvent, right? Do you even think we'll have $1 by then? Who knows? Anyway, but we care about, I care about the First Amendment, right? It feels like it's really under attack. Do you care about social media censoring and all of that? The government getting involved?
Do I care about it? Yeah.
Like, is that an election issue for you? Like when we say, when Kamala Harris says that she straight up said we should censor social media companies or get rid of them if they won't, talking about COVID and talking about all that other stuff.
I mean, that one's hard for me because I don't really use social media. So it's not like a daily part of my life that I'm, thinking about.
Interesting.
But
that's actually interesting. So when they talk about in terms of, okay, let's use an example, the Hunter Biden laptop. You know about that. We knew about that right when it happened. We actually had a source. We knew people. Like it was a thing where we were like, oh, that's coming out, remember?
Yeah.
And then it came out. I was like, yeah, I told everybody. And then it came out. And then what? Nothing. We were told that it was fake. And they went so far as to block it from being shared. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. That's censoring. And when you have, okay, here's another example. Does the idea of a politicized DOJ bother you?
Yes.
Okay, so would you consider that to be an election issue?
Yeah.
When you think of that, do you think, this is not in an interview, I'm sorry. I know you hate when I do this, but I'm genuinely curious because this is how we would talk at home. When you think of, like you've got Republicans versus Democrats running, which is it's a stupid binary choice, right? But in this instance, we're talking about a president and then who they're going to put and install as the head of these agencies and so forth and so on. When you think of in this election, I think both sides have said some things that make me a little bit nervous. I don't want any side. Now, but at the same time, we've now seen Democrats are straight up willing to go after people.
Yes.
So is it one of those, you've got to throw mud, or do we go in and clean house and make sure mud can't be thrown again? And is that sort of how you frame it in your head? Or do you think of it just more in terms of, oh crap, it's scary that they can go after this person. I don't want to be a target as well. Or do you just know it's wrong and you don't like that? Because when I think of it, like I think of Trump as being sort of representing us in a lot of ways, right? And I think, well, what if we've gone through some processes?
Right.
What if we didn't have the resources to defend ourselves? What if we didn't have a lifetime of legacy and character to back up our statements? Like, what would that mean versus not, right? So when you start to think of the justice system, it's not that it's two-tiered. It's like, it's kind of like getting surgery. Like you want the best heart surgeon, but in reality, there can only be one best. And eventually you're going to reach a point where you got guy who can cut and no heart. Right?
Can draw a picture of heart.
Heart here. Oop. Here. Right? They'll figure it out. Okay. But somebody in there's got to remind him, the nurse is all like, oh, very good. Yes. There's the heart. It's not moving. So you would know, like you want it above adequate. But my point is that you just kind of like get what you get. I forgot what I was talking about. I started thinking about somebody doing heart surgery on me that wasn't qualified, and it made me lose my train of thought there. I don't know why I have this phobia of surgeries now. What were they talking about? It's a complete brain fart again.
The DOJ being
Yes.
politicized.
Right. I don't know how I made that's a non sequitur if I've ever heard one. When I can't even get back on the right track, that's bad. But my point is that eventually, like in anything in any system, there's finite resources. So eventually, you get a not so great attorney. Eventually, you get the police officer who doesn't really care as much,
Right.
or maybe you've fallen into a category of people who have historically been categorized, but that's not fair or whatever. But some people are, they get into trouble as a child because they come from a broken home, and then it follows them into adulthood, and you're automatically, the assumption is, definitely was the wrong in this party, when we don't know. It's like our kids. If they're honest with us, we listen, we hear them both out. But if one of them's acting out lately and lying, it's like pretty much, nah, we're not gonna listen to you. We tell them to their face, no. This is not how this justice system works, 6-year-old. Go to prison. No, but we... So are these, I think when I think about issues, it's kind of weird to look at it through a lens of, like, but the DOJ thing, to me, it just feels wrong. It feels anti-American. Is that the right word to go for? Yeah, Dave's shaking his head. So that's one of those things that sort of... So I asked Dave to pull up the poll. Like, this is what people say they're concerned about. Right there. Yay. So Trump supporters versus... So it's weighted, right? Which is weird because that would mean to imply that these people think that the system is currently fine. So 32% of Democrats think that, or Harris supporters think the economy is fine, right? Otherwise, it would be a top issue. But maybe it's weighted. So they just said, it's very important, okay? So 32% of people don't think the economy matters when they're voting, and 7% of people on the Republican side, same thing, right? But we're right. Well, the next one is healthcare, which is interesting because I think for us, we'll come back to that in a second. But Supreme Court appointments, foreign policy, violent crime. Look at the immigration split.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's weird
that's one that I would put on my top.
Yeah, the closest
something.
It looks like is foreign policy or gun policy. And it's interesting because that's that's a straight dichotomy.
Yeah.
Right. And yet you see, violent crime. Oh, but here's what's crazy to me. In all of these, with the exception of immigration, and again, that issue is which is weird that it wouldn't be on there. And it's flipped down there. Well, weird. I see gun policy. It flips to blue on the other end. 67% of Harris supporters say abortion is an important issue. Racial and ethnic inequality. And interesting that racial and ethnic inequality, we were told we're all racist on our side. And if it's only 18%, then that means that 92% of us aren't actually feeling like they're going to take our jobs. So in other words, we're not complaining. Interesting. And climate change is still at 62%. So that's weird. The weird one is immigration. 82% of Trump supporters, only 39. So 61% of Harris supporters say that the border is fine. So why isn't she trumpeting her borders are experience? But there's like only a couple issues there, which is interesting to me. There's only a couple issues there where people say they're good. I'm good. The people voting for her, we're plurality, so meaning only a quarter of the country is like, yeah, we're cool. This is the right track. And yet she's not being labeled sort of the incumbent. She's been there 3.5 years.
Did people forget that?
I think they're trying to just pretend that either everything you're seeing is not true. So we fixed inflation. You're just not, you're just, okay, so I just came back from the store. I brought back cans of something, and they're 11 ounces. When have they ever been 11 ounces?
Never.
They were 16 ounces. Then they dropped them to 12. Now they're 11 ounces. Same price. And the response from one side of the house was, from a visitor, was that it was price gouging. And I thought, because I'm not mocking the person, it's just because it's an idea out there. Kamala Harris put it out there. She said, oh, it's price gouging. We're going to make it illegal to price gouge. That's called price fixing, by the way, which eliminates competition and eliminates availability of product, sending it skyrocketing, and actually causes way worse and causes food deserts. But we won't go there for a second. Let's just talk about, and I remember I asked, they said, I was talking about the price of hamburger. Well, we get our hamburger right from the processor. So I said, who's price gouging? Well, everyone. No, but there's the farmer, a rancher, there's the processor, and then there's, I got it. It's up 50%. Beef is up 50% in the last 18 months. That's not a fake thing. That's not, I made it up. It's just a fact. So who's price gouging there? That isn't indicative of price gouging. That's indicative of higher energy costs and the higher cost of doing business. In other words, inflation. Bad policy, right? And so I was sort of thinking, and we're already halfway through. Oh my goodness, we are halfway through. But I wanted to sort of go over some of this stuff in two ways. One, I want to bring that list back up and think, what do we think of as people? Like, if these are the top issues, when somebody says to you, the economy is the most important thing right now, do you think jobs, or do you think the price of groceries?
Groceries.
Right, the price of goods. So the economy is indicative to you based on what you have to spend and relative to what is incoming. Is that a fair assessment of like?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the groceries cost $890 the last time we went to the grocery store.
Yeah.
We shopped for 2 weeks, but $1,800 a month in groceries, and that doesn't include other things that we have to get regularly, milk and other stuff like that. So $2,000 a month in groceries. That's insane. We can't afford that. Right? So what's happening? I eat less, which is not good. We actually make healthier food, which is interesting, I think.
Yeah.
But we don't go out to eat anymore. I was looking. So here's the things that people cut out. Okay, tell me if any of these sound familiar so far. The number one thing, dining out, reducing restaurant visits and takeout orders.
Yep.
Was first thing out the window, wasn't it?
Yep.
The only thing we still do is pizza night, which we lament because we have such awful. Wait, we don't have any good pizza places here. I don't mind saying that. We have awful pizza where we live. Okay, like there's no place that delivers or comes out or whatever. So, but pizza night was a thing growing up for us. Was it a thing for you?
Yeah.
What was it? Friday or Saturday?
Depends what we had going on. Like if I had the soccer game Saturday morning, we didn't do it Friday night. You know?
Well, I mean, I used to make pizza back when I had more time. But, funny enough, during the lockdown when we were in DC, but I made pizza but we don't have the right temperature oven. So it kind of is not fun. And we're not the kind of people that can afford to get a pizza oven, but you get my point. But that's like the one thing we have left. And we've even cut that down. Yeah. No sides, just pizza. Right? Okay. Subscription services. Canceling or downgrading streaming services, magazines, or online subscriptions. What was the very next thing that we cut?
All of our streaming services.
Yeah. Anything that we had. It wasn't just that. It was media. I went and checked all the subscriptions and saw, because we sat down and said, this is what, we're adults. We sat down and talked about the budget, and it was like, oh, and then we immediately just went through, what can we do? Well, we're not going out to eat anymore. Better be a special occasion, like a real special one, and we better know it in advance. Okay, what's the next thing we did? Cut our literally pulled out our phones, went through all of our subscriptions to any magazine or whatever, not magazine, but you get my point. Yeah. Any app. We cut that. Okay. It says cable TV. We did that a long time ago because we don't watch TV. Entertainment, cutting back on movies, concerts, events, and other leisure
We
activities.
don't do that anyway.
We don't, but it was just a discussion this weekend, remember?
Yeah.
We were talking about, hey, maybe we could go do this activity. And we looked up the cost,
Yeah.
and it was $52 a ticket. 54?
I think it was 54, something like that.
I'm not afraid to say what it was. It was like a Harry Potter forest experience down in. And we sat there and we were like, I seem to remember the cost of Universal Studios being the same price back before we, had to boycott theme parks. But you get my point. It was the same cost to go to Universal Studios. I'm not paying that. It would have been $250 for more than that. Yeah, it would have been $270 plus travel plus anything we wanted just to go out. And we looked at that and we're like, oh, yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of money just to spend on going to a magical forest experience.
For an hour before somebody has a meltdown.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it in terms of, we do this with our kids and stuff, like I think about that and I think, gosh, that's a really nice bicycle at Christmas time. It's 2 bicycles, actually. Actually, I don't know with inflation. It might be half a bicycle. It's a unicycle. It's a halfway decent unicycle. Made in China. I love that the kids now can
Oh my
read.
gosh,
All
I
of
know.
our kids, Dave, all of our kids know what the word made in China means. Now they run around the house, and if they find anything that says made in China, they'll hold it up and they go, oh, this is made in China. It's awesome. It's so American. I love it. Anyway, it's like, I love that the kids go, why do we have so much
Or
stuff made in China?
if they break one of their toys or something, they're like, they look at it and they're like, it was made in China.
Yes, I love it. I love it. But we don't have a lot of stuff that's made in China. It's mostly stuff people give us, which is ironic more than anything. We're just like, oh, I mean, I like my clothes made in Vietnam. Thank you very much. Okay. Because I heritage, right? Where you're from. So I just like, but anything else, USA or Vietnam or France, if we don't get it from there. Yes.
My place where I am now getting guitars from, Vietnam.
Nice.
Nice. There you go. See, Vietnam.
Custom shop guitars,
Yeah.
no less.
Custom shop guitars.
Yeah.
Same with the guitar shop. Napalm.
No.
Okay. Wow, I can't believe
No,
you
it's not
laughed at that.
that.
I can't believe you laughed at that. That was awful. Wow. Okay.
Oh, goodness.
I feel awful about saying that.
You should.
Okay, so then it goes gym memberships. That's smart. I don't think anybody who goes to the gym for health is canceling their gym membership due to, like, I can't imagine. It was one of the things I held on to. So, but that doesn't apply to us because we're old people with kids.
Our gym membership is carrying our kids around the house.
Right. Travel and vacations. We just talked about this again. We filled up the truck once since June.
Yeah.
Once. Just did it. So we don't go anywhere anymore. It's too expensive. The only thing to go to is the drive-in theater at Gatesville. It's an hour away. We make a trip of it and we try to go, but right now they have inappropriate movies. So we can't go. Just not movies for our kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, kids don't need to see Beetlejuice. Oh my goodness! So they made a sequel to Beetlejuice, right?
Right.
Yeah. Did I talk to you about this? But the rating, I went and looked it up. So, if you had to guess what Beetlejuice was, and I want you to remember what was inside. I'm not giving a spoiler warning. I'm giving just a warning about the topics. But the topics were like suicide. Like the girl tries to kill herself.
Yeah.
There's Lydia. They have all of the administrative people who work are all suicide victims. Anybody who's stuck in admin hell, right? They have hookers. They have swear words. They drop F-bombs. There's basically forced child marriage. But anyway, like there's all this other stuff. Do you know what the movie's rated?
I only know because you mentioned it.
Oh, I
but-
did mention it to you.
Yes.
Okay. It's PG. Let's see. That's the face I was looking for. That's the same face she made.
Yeah.
It's PG. It's not PG-13.
It's shocking.
It's PG. So,
That is wrong.
yeah.
That is just wrong.
Yeah. I was like, how is that a PG movie? man, our parents were really bad at their job. Batman was also PG. Arachnophobia was PG. Like, I'm starting to think about all the movies they took me to as a kid, and I'm starting to think, no wonder I'm so messed up. Good thing I didn't have access to video games. But this was, but this is one of those things where you go, okay, so they're playing Beetlejuice.
What is the new
Beetlejuice.
one rated?
I don't know what it's like. I already know what the first one was about, so there's no point in taking, because then the kids are going to want to see. We're not
Oh
going.
yeah, no, we're not. Our kids are not.
My
gonna
point
see
was is that there's nowhere to go.
Right.
But when you talk about trips, we just genuinely sit here and talk about it, and we're like, oh, are we going to drive all the way to Austin? Are we going to? Because there's not. They do stuff here, but so we're planning the rodeo. That's it. What is it rated? It's rated PG.
PG-13.
Oh, so they grew up a little bit. Unintended. Okay. Clothing and accessories. That's obvious. But we're different. We don't go anywhere. So why do you need fancy clothes? Coffee shops.
I mean, I think that's probably more like
Right.
kid related because they grow out of stuff so fast. But people are probably, getting better about their spending in that area.
Yeah. So coffee shops are down. Would you go? I mean, where was I that I was going to stop somewhere and I told you I left? It was a Starbucks. And it was at, I was traveling somewhere. Remember, I was in the drive-thru and it was like $9.49. And I went, wait, $10 for a cup of coffee? Like, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't. I went to a Circle K and went and got some
Yeah, you don't
coffee.
even get the fancy.
I think, no, I was going to get a latte or something, because if you're going to get
Right,
it.
but that's not one of those like things that's not on the menu.
Oh, no, it's milk and espresso.
Yeah.
But like the regular coffee's over $4. But I just remember sitting there, and I hate the regular coffee. It's gross. But I was occasionally, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I don't go to Starbucks, but if I'm traveling and I've got nowhere to go, sometimes you're just stuck. But that time I quite just got out of line and went to Circle K. I was like, I'm not paying $10. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I cannot, in a cup in my car, not sitting in a cafe looking at the Eiffel Tower. I'm in my car looking at the ass end of a truck. Like, that's it.
You're going to spill half of it
Am I
on
allowed to say
yourself.
truck on TV? Yeah. Okay. So, but then it's like alcohol and tobacco. That's obvious. Do people still use tobacco now? I don't mean to sound stupid, but
I am assuming yes.
As a former smoker,
yeah.
at 2 packs a day,
Ew.
yeah, that was bad. I cannot believe that people are still paying for cigarettes at the price that they are now.
Yeah.
So I smoked in the Marine Corps, and I also smoked in the Army, but both times it was when I was deployed. And so 3 times, but you get the point. I only smoked when I was deployed. So, well, I'm probably going to die anyway. And then later on, I'm like, oh, now I got to quit smoking. Should have just died. So would have been easier. Quitting smoking is hard. Last I heard, dying is pretty straightforward. Okay. So, and also when you die, you don't have to wash your own clothes to get the smell out. Other people do it for you. So smoking harder. Anyway, quitting smoking. So, but yeah, it's like in New York City, it's like $16 for a pack of cigarettes.
That's insane.
$16. Look that up. I'm not wrong. Beauty and grooming services. I'm going to stay this ugly. Hobbies, vehicle upgrades, delaying the purchase of a new car, cutting back on vehicle accessories. I know people who were cutting back on fixing their car, period.
Yeah.
They can't afford to do repairs right now. You're starting to see more of the barter economy.
Well, that and it takes so long to get the parts for the repair.
Right. You're almost, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And then, of course, if you have vehicle issues, that means you're probably not working as much, which definitely impacts your ability to pay for it.
Yeah.
What's a pack of cigarettes?
Your average cost of cigarettes in New York, this is average. It's over $10 for a pack.
Right. So that's including the little bum brand. So it's probably like $15 for a pack of Marlboros or something like that.
$10.45 is
For
the
what?
average in the state
In
for
the
cigarettes.
state.
In Texas. Or, I'm sorry, no, in New York.
Yeah, but what's New York City? Because they have a completely different rules there. That's the whole premise of Beverly Hills Cop.
Wow.
It's avoiding cigarette taxes. It's true. The mafia used to run cigarettes. They'd get them without the stamp, and people would want to sell them because they could sell them for cheaper. And the mafia would steal cigarettes and then sell them for half price to somebody who would then sell them for just under full price, but be able to, or whatever. And it was all to beat a tax. Same thing with bootlegging. It continued after the whole, the prohibition ended because of taxes. Most of the time that you have any of this is taxes. It's pretty funny. Everybody hates taxes, but loves Texas. Huh. It's funny what one vowel can do. Interesting. But so then you start to get down into it. It's like home improvements, charitable donations, health and wellness products, utilities. We did it. We looked at our utility bill and we made a commitment, a long commitment, 10-year commitment to solar so we could cut down on the cost of electricity. Which, I'd love to pretend we were doing it for the environment. We weren't. We were doing it for consistency of access and because of the cost. Because we figured out we could actually lower the cost of and it influences all of our other purchases now. What were you going to say? Oh, you were looking at me like you were going to say something. So I'm going to bring back up that list again because so we just went through kind of like economics, right? And it's pretty obvious. Like, it's pretty funny. This is just a random generated list, but it's in order of exactly what we did.
Yeah.
Like we go to
well, aside from the cable,
right, but that would
ago.
have been right. But we did that years ago for many reasons.
Yeah,
most of which weren't economic. Funny enough, but when you look at all of this and you go, okay, this is how much of this actually impacts your daily life. So groceries, interestingly enough, aren't on here. People don't cut back on groceries, but we do, don't we? We get store brands,
yeah.
Or we look for sales, or it influences whatever's less expensive tends to influence what we eat more of.
Or when you will get it, like, can I put this off for another week, or do I need it right now? Like if it's like a household good.
Yeah, like do we have enough? Even simple stuff.
Can I get the last of this laundry detergent out?
Yeah, like literally.
Yeah.
It's just like, do I need to? Because you can't buy that in $1 portion and just get through till next week. You've got to spend the whole $23.
Yeah.
We're taking care of so many dang cats right now that the cost of cat food and litter is just ridiculous. And I know that sounds kind of but really it's adding up.
Yeah.
Like, this is where all my Twitter donations are going, or not donations, but I get ad share or whatever, but all of it's going to the same dang thing. And that is basically, hey, we've got to pay for all of this. So I think that when you and I think, oh, does the economy, like what does that do for us? Like, does it impact us and that same kind of thing? I think that when you look at that, you go, yeah, it does. But at the same time, does it impact us in the same way, like in a way that you would go, okay, I want to vote because I have less vacation this year? I think people think in terms of cyclical, or do you think they see the overarching impact of this and go, man, things are not getting better?
I think it depends on who you're talking about.
Okay, let's say us. Like, do we look at the economy and say it's getting worse? I know we do, actually. So I'm asking a facetious
silly question.
Yeah. But so we talk about it. And it does impact us. Like, would that influence you to go vote? I'd say yes.
Yeah. I mean, if we weren't going to already, yeah.
I'd say this is probably the number one issue for us. That and probably there are others. Bring this back up there real quick for me, would you, Dave, please? Okay, so healthcare. Oh, okay. So here's the difference between, I think, the healthcare conversation for us versus other people. Is that when we talk about healthcare, it's the too much healthcare. That make sense?
No.
Too much vaccine. Too much.
Right. Gotcha.
Take a pill. Too much. Go see a doctor.
Right.
When a lot of it is just, environmental or behavioral.
Right.
And you just have to work through it.
Yeah, because even when our daughter was in school, they would want a doctor's note for everything. Like, why can't she's sick. She just threw up. Why do I need to take her to a doctor? Like, she just
Yeah, I don't
we
need
know
a
how to treat that
specialist.
at home. I don't need someone to say, "Oh, yeah, she's got a stomach bug."
Exactly. So
Like, yeah, so I'm gonna keep her at home and not get everyone else sick. We're gonna treat it like exactly what the doctor would tell us to do, and then
but that's a lot. What's funny about that is that's a lot like medical autonomy, which is the irony to me of the people who are arguing about abortion.
mhm,
They keep saying the whole, get out of my life.
right,
Same thing with the whole trans thing. And they're like, get out of my life. But when it comes to things like that, they're like, no, but I want to be in your life.
yeah,
Like, what? When my child's 12, they get access to their medical records, but I can't. Yeah, I'm not living in that state.
no,
My child is under 18. They have no idea what decisions they're making. And even when they turn 18, they won't. I always think it's funny to me that when it comes to huge decisions they want to let kids make, they're like, oh, they're old enough. They're old enough. But whenever you see somebody who commits a crime or does something at the age of 18 or 19 or 20, they're like, well, they're still a kid.
yep.
So,
Their brain's not fully developed.
right. So when
Yeah,
they make
well-
a decision that will negatively impact them, that as a society we want to forgive them, but when they go off and do things that we know will negatively impact them as an individual and thus impact society, with the argument is, oh well, they can make their own decisions.
Right.
Okay. If you at any point have heard a pop star say they're voting for someone and your answer is me too, you are not old enough to vote or mature enough. I just want to say
And it
that.
doesn't matter what number that age is.
Right. I could almost understand politicians because you've already said policy wise, I'm behind you on this.
Right.
But if they've left, or whatever, if they've left office a long time ago and burned through their cash supplies of good faith or shot enough friends in a hunting accident in the face, they're likely to lose whether or not I care about whether or
Right.
not their opinion is out there. So I think for healthcare for us, it's actually the cost of healthcare is an issue, obviously. And there are other things, but I think for us, it's more about I want the government less involved
Right.
in my healthcare at this point. I think something's wrong with I don't call it the healthcare industry anymore. I call it the
Well,
sick
and you have
care.
to pay for your visit.
Yeah.
So, of course, they want you to go more.
What's the incentive for you to not be there? That's the point. What's
Right.
the incentive to keep you healthy? Unless you're a doctor, you know them and care about them, or
Right.
vice versa. They care about the end outcome for you. What's the incentive to not bring you in? There is none.
Exactly.
So there's no benefit to treating somebody being sick. There's only to get somebody healthy. There's only a benefit to treating somebody when they're sick. So I think that's the main difference when we talk about it. Whereas I think on the other end, they're talking about access to care and other things like that. And I'm like, well, that would resolve itself if you would just, maybe stop treating it. People blame the cost of healthcare on the industry. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys created the industry. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you guys want a beauty industry where so half your medical students are now giving Botox shots instead of, learning to be physicians. And then you're upset about that. You incentivized it.
Yeah.
It's true. People spend more money on how they look than they do on what's going on in their body. They just don't care. I don't know. Anyway,
It's crazy.
you bring that list back up again real quick. Thanks. So then it says Supreme Court appointments. Okay. Now on this one, you have a plurality of people who think that's an important issue on both sides, right? And to me, it's the Supreme
See,
Court.
to me, that's like not something I pay attention to unless it's like an in your face.
I
This
think
is what's going on. Pay attention.
I think it's a down
It's
ballot
not
thing.
Something I think about regularly.
All right, but I mean, a president can't just assign somebody to the Supreme Court,
Right.
and you can't just stack the Supreme Court as in add more seats without doing a constitutional amendment, which would require 75% of the state legislatures to agree with, and that's never going to happen. So that's a lot of talk. It's kind of like making Washington D.C. a state or making Puerto Rico a state. It's just a lot of talk because
Right.
it requires everyone to vote. And nobody right now is going to. I actually like it when Congress and Senate don't get anything, like they fight, because it means that if either side was getting everything they wanted, I'd be a little bit worried.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what happens. But the difference is that Democrats are willing to sacrifice seats to get like the Affordable Care Act done, Obamacare. Right. But which you didn't get to keep your doctor, lie of the year. But I think that on the Supreme Court issue, what they're obviously talking about core issues right now having to do with the First and Second Amendment. And then they're talking about obviously Roe v. Wade.
Right.
which we saw. Go back to that list again real quick. You see down there abortions and so it's a priority issue for Harris supporters, 67% of them, right? But what they're really but you see gun policy is the same thing, 59% for them. And that's what we were talking about is it's a dichotomy because what we care about gun policy, and obviously we care about Supreme Court appointments and how they interpret the Second Amendment.
Right.
But for very different reasons.
Yes.
Right. Okay, but the big one right there to me is violent crime and immigration. Because obviously foreign policy, I do think it's funny that they're saying 46% of Harris supporters are saying they're perfectly fine with our foreign policy right now. Like everything's going smooth, right? But when you talk about violent crime and immigration, you have a plurality of Democrats saying that like there's no violent crime right now or it's fine. And 20 million people coming into our country in the last 3.5 years is perfectly okay. They're just okay with it. And I think it's interesting because I don't feel like that is, like, even in your passive way, would you say that violent crime is, well, I know you wouldn't. Would you say violent crime is down?
No.
Would you say it's influenced by the border?
Absolutely.
Would you say that the border is secure? Okay. So
That's funny.
you're an average person. You're actually far above average. But I mean, as far as consumption of media, you're about in my opinion, you're average. You read your news, you get some highlights. I tell you about stuff, interactions, things like that. But even you, just in your passive way to day-to-day life, can see visible signs that things are not okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I mean, and that's without media or social media. That's just like in our actual real world life.
even in our small town, like even in our little town.
Yes.
So who is it that's not, like, who are these people? Go back to that list again real quick. So who are the 32% of people that aren't affected by the economy right now? Who are the, 76% of them care about healthcare, right? But have the current person in office. Okay. I hate being colorblind because I'm just now realizing how much of these are flipped. I thought it was automatically on one side.
No.
But 76% of people care about healthcare on that side. So in other words, it's a priority issue. So either they've been boogeymaned into thinking that it's going to go away, that they're going to lose their healthcare under Trump, which is ludicrous, or only 24% of people are happy right now with their healthcare. Think about that for a second. The person who's in office right now, okay, because so I don't, tell me if who's in charge right now? Do you?
Who knows?
Right. Do you in any, truthfully, just like, if you asked anyone, do you really believe anybody would say Biden's in charge right now?
No.
Do you think anybody who said Biden's in charge right now actually believes it?
No.
Okay, so nobody
What is he even doing right now?
on vacation.
Oh, of course.
Right. He's like always he's on perpetual vacation. This is the ultimate staycation / quiet quit. He releases a Twitter feed. I'm going to say that because I don't think the guy knows it switched to X. But he doesn't. He still says, send out a tweet. But he sends out a message without any letter. I quit. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Now he's just going around campaigning for Harris. Who's in charge, right? Because Congress isn't in session. So they're in recess. So who's doing anything right now? It's like scares the jeebs out of me. There's nobody in charge. If he's not in charge, who's in charge? That would be Harris, right? And I love how the answer is, well, I mean, he's got administrative people. So we have some unelected people in charge? They're just making all these decisions for us right now?
But she's not in charge because she's too busy worried about her own election.
Right.
So,
Well, you could say that anybody's running for election. I mean, but still, she's not. But we know Biden's not in charge.
right.
And we know she's not in charge because she's saying, I'm not responsible for any of this. So I'm just wondering how you could have so many people that this be a priority issue and saying, I'm unhappy. I mean,
And then still
Right. 67% of Americans believe the country's headed in the wrong direction. And you have an incumbent running, and they're trying to tell us that everything's okay. Do you feel like everything's okay?
No.
Like, do you go about your daily life and just think things are going to be great if this keeps on this path right now?
Not at all.
Not at all, right? I mean, I'm not trying to scaremonger people, but do you and I sit here and think, talk about it at home, and we're like,
Gosh, I really hope that life continues to be like this.
yeah, like I love the price of groceries right now. I finally feel like I'm paying for the quality I get. Like there's an equilibrium here, and you know what? I that 2% the grocery stores are making, they could probably bring that down a tiny bit and make 0%, right? That would be helpful to me. Like that's not. Oh gosh, I love that I can't afford to fill up my truck more than once a quarter of a year, right? That I have to make economic decisions and think 5-6 years down the road, not just because I'm being an adult, but because you actually have to worry about the economy. Okay. So we're normal Americans. It's good to see. I mean, I surprised you. I had no idea what the topic was going to be today, but I just thought about it. I was like, I wonder how average we are. And then you look through the list and you're like, holy goodness. Like, that's bad, right? I mean, that we've literally already cut. We're down to... We did some home improvements. I don't want to say home improvements, but we fixed our house this year. But that's it. Charitable donations. We're still doing those. We're almost there. That we're at the gift giving. Didn't get your parents' birthday presents.
Yeah.
Just saying. And that's a cheerful episode for today. So that's good.
Wee.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. See you tomorrow.